The harvest supper on Walker Farm always felt like a warm hug from the past, but this year, it carried a chill I couldn't shake. October's air was crisp, filled with the sweet spice of cinnamon from Mom's apple pie and the smoky tang of burning leaves from the fire pit. Lanterns hung from the old oak trees, casting golden flickers across the long wooden tables set up in the yard. Neighbors from nearby farms crowded around, their faces ruddy from the day's work, laughing and passing plates of roasted corn, mashed potatoes, and venison stew. For a moment, as I sat there squeezing Mom's hand under the table, I let myself believe this could feel like home again. Dad had loved these suppers. They were his way of saying thanks to the community that helped keep the farm alive. But then Carl stood up, his broad shoulders blocking the lantern light, and raised his glass high. Carl wasn't my real dad. He'd married Mom 5 years ago, after Dad's heart gave out one rainy spring morning. He was tall and loud, with a booming voice that made everyone lean in, whether they wanted to or not. "To the new future of Walker Farm," he declared, his words slicing through the chatter like a cold wind. "Soon we'll expand, modernize, and put this land to real use. Big machines, new crops, real money. And Patricia here? Her mom will be well compensated when she sells her little piece." The words hit me like a slap. Her little piece? This was Dad's farm, our farm. The one he'd poured his sweat into for 40 years, teaching me how to mend fences and spot blight on the corn leaves before it spread. I was Patricia Walker, not some outsider. Heat rushed up my neck, burning my cheeks, but I bit my tongue. Mom smiled weakly, her eyes glued to her plate as if the peas there held all the answers. The neighbors shifted uncomfortably, murmuring into their napkins. I set my glass down with a soft clink that echoed louder in my ears than any shout. No one else seemed to notice, but inside, a storm was brewing. After supper, as the stars dotted the sky like scattered diamonds, I helped Mom clear the dishes. The kitchen was warm from the oven, smelling of leftover pie crust. Carl lumbered in, wiping his hands on his pants, and slid a thick red folder into the bottom drawer of the old oak desk in the corner, the one Dad used to balance the books. He turned the key with a sharp click, locking it away. I caught a glimpse of the label, Expansion Phase 2. His eyes met mine for a split second, flat and challenging, like he was daring me to say something. "Routine paperwork," he grunted, before turning back to the sink. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, forcing a nod. "Sure," I said, keeping my voice light. But that click of the lock stuck in my mind, sharp as a thorn. Dad's farm. My childhood swings on the porch, races through the cornfields, secrets shared by the creek. And now Carl, with a key that felt like it didn't belong to him at all. Sleep didn't come easy that night. The house creaked under the weight of autumn winds, and every shadow seemed to whisper doubts. Around midnight, I slipped out of bed, pulled on my boots and jacket, and headed to the barn. The hayloft was my old hiding spot, up the rickety wooden ladder that groaned under my weight. The air up there was thick with dust and faded memories, straw bales stacked like forgotten forts, the faint scent of sun-dried hay. As a girl, I'd climb here when Dad worked late, watching fireflies dance through the slats. I could almost hear his gravelly voice now. "If anything happens to me, Patty, keep the land honest. It's more than dirt. It's our legacy." Grief hit me like a wave, cold and heavy, pooling in my chest. Tears stung my eyes as I sat on an old blanket, flashlight beam cutting through the dark. Carl thought I'd just pack up and leave, like some city girl who'd outgrown the farm. He didn't know me at all. I wasn't the scared kid anymore. I was 28, with a consulting job in the city that I'd put on hold to help Mom after the funeral. Whispering into the shadows, I made a promise. "I'm not leaving, Dad. Not without a fight." The next morning dawned gray and misty, the kind of fog that clings to the fields like a shroud. Over coffee, black and strong, the way Dad liked it, I dialed Mr. Olson, Dad's old accountant. He'd retired to a little house on the edge of town, surrounded by bird feeders and stacks of yellowed ledgers. His voice crackled through the phone line, slow and careful as always. "Patricia? Been too long. What's on your mind? I explained Carl's big plans, the folder, the toast that felt like a goodbye. There was a pause, then a sigh. You'd better come see me, girl. Bring your ID. Got some old papers that might change things. An hour later, I pulled up to his porch, the gravel crunching under my truck tires. Mr. Olson's kitchen smelled of fresh-baked scones and pipe tobacco. He slid a faded manila folder across the checkered tablecloth without a word. Inside were incorporation documents from 20 years ago. Yellowed but crisp. Dad had set up the farm as a trust, with partners listed, himself, Mom, and me, as an equal share when I turned 18. Any sale or major change needed unanimous approval. My name was right there in black ink, bold as brass. My heart thudded like a drum in my chest. This means Carl can't sell without me? Olson nodded, his bushy eyebrows knitting together. That's right. But trusts can be tricky. Courts might side with active owners if you're seen as absent. Get involved. Patricia. Show your part of this. I thanked him with a hug that surprised us both, then drove straight to the city to see my lawyer, Ms. Rivera. Her office was all glass and files, a world away from the farm's dirt paths. She pored over the papers, her glasses perched on her nose. Valid as can be, she said finally. But Carl's been running things. If he claims you're inactive, he could petition to dissolve it. Start participating. Sign checks, attend meetings. Build your case. I nodded, mind racing like a river after rain. Back home that evening, Carl tried his charm offensive, flashing that salesman smile over dinner. Fried chicken and green beans from the garden. You'll thank me when the check clears, Patricia. This place needs updating. Big money coming in. I smiled back, hiding the fire in my gut. I'll think about it, I said sweetly, passing the salt. Inside, I was mapping my next moves. He believed he'd already won. Let him keep thinking that, for now. The days blurred into a tense routine. I kept my cool through breakfasts where Carl bragged about his vision, buttering his toast like he owned the world. Mom hovered quietly, her eyes darting between us. One morning, as he shoveled eggs into his mouth, he mentioned a new investor eager to move fast. Sounds exciting, I said casually, stirring my coffee. What about water rights? Or the equipment leases? Those could snag things. He paused, fork midway to his mouth, then waved it off. Details. Details. All handled. But I caught the flicker in his eye, surprised that I was asking. Each scrap he dropped went into my mental notebook. Names of contractors, timelines, vague mentions of clearing land quick. When he left for the fields in his dusty pickup, Mom exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. He means well, Patricia, she whispered, twisting her apron. I pressed a hand over hers, feeling her rough skin from years of chores. Maybe, I replied, though we both knew it was a lie. Carl's well-meaning felt more like a bulldozer flattening everything Dad built. Before dawn the next day, I met Henry and Rosa by the east fence. They'd worked the farm since I was a kid. Henry with his weathered hat and quiet strength, Rosa quick with a joke and quicker with a pitchfork. We leaned on the splintered wood as dew soaked my boots, the air humming with crickets. I need your help, I said softly. Eyes and ears. Anything off about Carl's plans? Henry's jaw tightened, his calloused hands gripping the fence. He's been bringing in heavy equipment at night. Bulldozers, mostly. No permits posted anywhere. Rosa and I saw him hauling dirt away under cover of dark. Rosa nodded, her dark braid swinging. He told us to keep quiet. Said it's for the good of the farm. But it don't feel right. Their loyalty warmed me like sunlight breaking fog. Dad had trusted them. Now I did too. Thank you, I whispered. This stays between us. That evening, after chores, I walked to the little creek where Dad and I used to skip stones. The water should have sparkled clear over smooth pebbles, but now it ran brown and sluggish, thick with something unnatural. I crouched on the bank, the mud sucking at my knees, and the sharp bite of chemicals stung my nose, like bleach mixed with oil. Dipping a mason jar in, I watched the murky liquid swirl. Heart sinking, I sealed it tight. Under the rising moon, the creek seemed to whisper its warning. Something was poisoning our land. Carl's land grab wasn't just about money. He was willing to ruin the soil itself, maybe to cut costs or hide his tracks. Back in the kitchen, washing mud from my hands under the faucet, Mom found me. Her face was pale, shadows under her eyes deeper than usual. "Patricia," she said, voice trembling like leaves in wind. "Carl asked me to sign some papers months ago. After your dad passed. Said they were routine estate stuff. I didn't read them. I was so tired, so lost." The jar sat on the counter, heavier than lead. "Do you know what they were?" I asked gently, drying my hands. She shook her head, eyes downcast. Fear hunched her shoulders, like Carl's control had woven invisible chains around her. For the first time, I saw how deep it ran. How he'd isolated her, made her doubt herself. I pulled her into a hug, her frail frame shaking. "We'll fix this, Mom. Together." The next day, I headed to the county clerk's office in town, the old brick building smelling of stale coffee and ink. While flipping through records on Carl's zoning requests, the clerk, a wiry woman with kind eyes, slipped me a folded note under the counter. "Off the record," she murmured. It read, "Midland Horizons, zoning change request. Watch your back." Midland Horizons. The name rang no bells, but the timing screamed trouble. A shell company, maybe, fraud to hide the real investor. I stepped outside onto the courthouse steps, the crisp air slapping my face. Carl thought I was just the passive daughter, twiddling thumbs in the city. He was about to learn I was a partner. And I played the long game, patient as the seasons. The county fairgrounds were alive with the chaos of fried dough, cotton candy, and the bleating of prize sheep. But I barely noticed as I balanced a tray of wine glasses, dressed in a black apron and sensible shoes. My childhood friend Marcy ran the catering service now, her laugh as bright as ever. "You sure about this spy gig?" She'd winked earlier, slipping me in as extra help for the investor dinner. The head table was Carl's kingdom. He sat laughing too loudly, arm around a sharp-suited man with a slick grin and city shoes that didn't belong in hay. I poured wine steadily, floating like a ghost among the guests, local bigwigs and out-of-towners in ties. "Clear title within weeks," Carl boasted to the stranger, clinking glasses. "No obstacles. We'll turn this dirt into gold." The man nodded, eyes gleaming. "I like speed. Double the acreage, chemical plants, quick turnaround." My hands trembled slightly as I refilled a glass nearby, but I kept my face neutral. Heart hammering, I slipped into the steamy kitchen, where pots clanged and Marcy chopped onions. "Midland Horizons," I whispered. "That's the investor. Shell company for sure." Marcy's eyes widened. "Be careful, Patty. Carl's not one to lose gracefully." Monday morning, I marched into the bank on Main Street, the brass door handle cold and heavy in my palm. Mr. Gleason, the manager, greeted me with a warm handshake, Dad's old friend, with his neatly trimmed mustache and ledger books. "Patricia, what brings you in?" I slid the trust documents across his polished desk without preamble. He scanned them twice, brow furrowing like plowed earth. "Carl never mentioned this partnership." "He wouldn't," I said flatly. "Can you review the farm's line of credit? Any loans he took out?" Gleason leaned back, whistling low. "If these are legit, and they look it, I'll pull the files. But this could stir things up." By the time I stepped back onto the sidewalk, sunlight glinting off shop windows, I knew Carl's secret loans, big ones for equipment he hadn't mentioned, were no longer hidden. A small victory, but it felt like cracking open a door to light. Home called me to the attic that afternoon, dust motes dancing in sunbeams through the small window. I dug through Dad's old seed catalogs, the pages brittle and scented with dry earth. Near the bottom of a cardboard box, tucked under faded photos of us at harvest, lay a sealed envelope. Addressed simply, "To my partner." My fingers shook as I tore it open. Inside was a hand-drawn map, Dad's careful script marking an X in the wild meadow above the farm. The underground spring that fed our crops through dry summers. "Our secret weapon," he'd written. "Keeps the land alive when others fail. Protect it." I traced the ink, a spark of hope igniting. That water was lifeblood. And Carl? He didn't even know it existed. 2 days later, under a pseudonym, my maiden name Walker, I met a local realtor at a diner smelling of bacon and strong tea. She was sharp-eyed. "No nonsense. The meadow parcel? It's undervalued, wild, no access road. Why the interest?" "Just investment," I lied smoothly. We drove up in her SUV, goldenrod swaying in the breeze like waves of gold. The spring bubbled hidden under rocks, pure and cool. Before dusk painted the sky pink, I signed the papers with savings from my city job, years of skipping lattes and vacations. Driving away, the deed burned in my bag like a talisman. The farm's heart was now mine alone. Word spread fast in a farming town. When the drilling crew Carl hired showed up to tap what they thought was easy water, they found the access blocked. Knew no trespassing signs I'd posted overnight. Carl exploded that evening, storming into the kitchen like a thundercloud, face red as barn paint. "What the hell is this?" he bellowed, slamming a report on the table. "Property lines misread? Or did you pull something, Patricia?" I looked up from peeling potatoes, calm as fresh cream. "Misread lines happen. Check the survey." His eyes narrowed to slits, but he said nothing more, just grabbed his keys and slammed out. For the first time, I saw doubt flicker behind the anger, like the ground under his boots was turning to sand. Tension thickened like fog. Late one night, after everyone slept, I heard footsteps in the barn. Grabbing a flashlight, I crept down, the wooden floor cold under my socks. The single bulb swung, casting long shadows across beams etched with old carvings, initials from workers long gone. Carl cornered me by the ladder, his breath hot and sour with whiskey. "You think you're clever," he hissed, stepping too close. "Buying land behind my back? Sabotaging my deals." I gripped the rail, heart pounding but voice steady. "I'm protecting what Dad built. That's all. This farm isn't yours to ruin." His fists curled, knuckles whitening like bleached bones. For a heartbeat, the air crackled. I thought he might swing, end it right there amid the hay and iron smells. But a beam creaked overhead, shifting in the wind, breaking the spell. He backed away, jaw clenched like a trap. "You'll regret this," he spat, slamming the barn door so hard dust rained from the rafters. I stayed until my breathing slowed, the scent of hay and cool night air steadying me. Sleep came fitful after that, dreams tangled with fire and falling fences. 2 days later, a white state vehicle crunched up the drive, kicking gravel. A man in a green windbreaker stepped out, state agriculture auditor, clipboard in hand. "We received an anonymous complaint," he said evenly, scanning the fields. "Unpermitted construction. Need to see your paperwork." Carl strode from the house, feigning wide-eyed surprise. "This is ridiculous. Nothing wrong here." The auditor just held out a hand for permits. Carl's glare sliced across the yard to me, where I stood by the porch pretending to weed flowers. "You did this," he growled low, close enough for only me to hear. "I protect the land," I replied coolly. "That's my job as partner." Word flew around town like sparks from a bonfire. Neighbors whispered I was sabotaging the farm, their sideways glances at the co-op stinging like nettle. "Troublemaker," one muttered as I bought feed. I held my head high, chin up, but each barb chipped at my resolve. Was I fighting for Dad, or just making enemies? That night, a orange glow on the ridge yanked me from sleep. Flames! I bolted barefoot through cold grass, yelling for help. Workers tumbled from bunks, grabbing hoses and shovels. The machinery shed blazed, acrid smoke of burning metal and oil choking the air. We fought till dawn, water arcing in weak streams, sweat mixing with soot on our faces, arms aching like lead. Henry cursed the rushed wiring Carl had insisted on. No inspections. Sloppy, he muttered, as embers hissed in puddles. When the fire died to smoke, the workers looked at me with new respect. We'd saved what we could together. Carl arrived late, barking orders no one followed. His endangerment hung in the air like ash. Later, on the porch steps, exhausted and grimy, Mom found me. Her hands trembled as she pressed a small digital recorder into my palm. I taped him, she whispered, voice breaking. Couldn't sleep one night. Heard him on the phone. I hit play. Carl's voice raged through the speaker. Dump it all in the creek. I don't care about runoff or fines. We need speed. Investor wants results now. My heart thundered. Proof. Solid as the deed in my pocket. Illegal dumping. Environmental crime. Mom's eyes brimmed with tears. I'm sorry I waited. He scared me. I hugged her tight, the recorder warm between us. You just helped save the farm, Mom. We're in this now. The county meeting hall buzzed like a hive. Farmers in flannel, officials in suits, the air thick with coffee and tension. Carl stood at the podium, glossy blueprints unrolled like a treasure map. Expansion means jobs, progress for our town, he declared, voice smooth as oil. Modern tech, steady paychecks. Murmurs of agreement rippled, but I stood, legs steady despite the knot in my stomach. The trust requires my consent as equal partner, I said clearly, voice carrying. I have not given it. Gasps swept the room. I laid it out, the deeds to the spring water test jars showing toxins, Mom's recording playing Carl's damning words for all to hear. The board chair's gavel cracked like thunder. Project halted pending full investigation. Carl's face drained to chalk white, eyes bulging. The town saw him then, not a hero, but a man who'd poisoned soil for profit. Whispers turned to outrage. By morning, the buzz had flipped. Midland Horizon's investor vanished overnight. Deal shredded. I watched from the kitchen window as Carl paced the porch, jabbing his phone. You can't pull out now. We had a handshake. Each slammed door rang like victory bells. The bank called next, Gleason's voice firm on the line. Credit frozen till the probe ended. Carl's empire, built on bluffs and shortcuts, crumbled piece by piece. I hadn't raised a fist, just shone light on truth. At dawn, I gathered the farmhands in the south pasture, sunlight spilling honey gold over hay bales. Dew sparkled on grass, birds calling overhead. I'm not just the girl who chased chickens, I said, meeting their curious stares. Henry's nod, Rose's grin. I'm co-owner, per Dad's trust. I plan to run this place sustainable. Fair wages, crop rotation, no poisons. Profitable for all of us. Surprise murmured, then cheers erupted, hats tossed high. Across the fence, Carl stood rigid, face pale as milk. The workers he'd bullied for years now turned to me. The silent partner had roared. A week later, Carl's lawyer called a tense meeting in a stuffy town office. Papers stacked like accusations. Fines for dumping, citations for unsafe builds, breach of trust suits. Carl blustered, sweat beading. We can negotiate shares. My attorney, Ms. Rivera, was ice calm. Only negotiation. Your full exit. Sign or face court, and jail for the fraud. His eyes darted. From me to the damning pile. The pen scratched paper like a death knell. He was out. Early next morning, mist cloaked the fields as Mom and I walked arm in arm. She handed me a signed statement. Sole management to me. Her eyes shimmered like dew. I should have protected you sooner. Feared losing everything. You did today, I said, hugging her. The air smelled of wet earth. Promise. Side by side, no more shadows. Sun rose over Walker Farm, copper gold skies welcoming. New irrigation lines from the hidden spring sparkled, feeding rows of hearty crops. I walked the furrows, boots sinking into rich soil, wind whispering through stalks. In the distance, Carl's truck rumbled away, a lonely speck fading. Promise kept, Dad, I murmured, words carried on the breeze. The farm was ours, strong, honest, alive. And so was I.